Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Steph.
And I'm Elle.
I'm Al.
And that's Molly.
I'm Molly, sorry.
And this week we're covering Army of Darkness, the third Evil Dead movie. And it continues. Okay, but can I say, before anything else, I love that all three movies have the second and the third movie have a recap, and it's all different Lindas, and this one's Bridget Fonda with a bowl cut. She looks like Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. I like it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
I didn't consider that, but now I cannot unsee it in my head.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so as we left Ash, I think he also gets more sure of himself with every movie, and he gets increasingly more dapper and comfortable with saying off the wall shit because he knows he's handsome.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Stop. I literally wanted to backhand slap him, but then I said, okay.
Right.
It's like, that is the corniest shit I have ever heard. All right.
But it works.
That bitch for 2 seconds. Like, what is that? Like, come on, Sheila.
I hope you know, I watched this with my family, and I am no longer allowed to choose the movies that we watch.
That's why I literally have like a TV in a separate room than the living room to watch these on, or I watch it on my iPad, because after, what was that movie? What was the movie that we covered that was based on the book? Nightbreed. After Nightbreed, my boyfriend said no. No.
My house is total anarchy. All screens are just trash.
Are subject to trash. But you know what? I didn't think this movie was trash, and that's okay if other people do not agree. But like, this was so fun. And where we first, I wanted to ask Elle, because we covered the last two movies together. At the end of Evil Dead 2, the archaeologist daughter bitch, she had to read from the ancient texts, okay? There's two parts. She only read the first part that unleashes the evil. She immediately forgot to read the second part. And so that's when the swirling vortex appeared. In the recap, they don't show it. They couldn't afford the archaeologist lady. They spent all their money on Bridget Fonda. So it sucked Ash and his whole car into the dark times. Now, why did that lady not immediately start reading part 2?
To shut him up.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was her plan all along.
She was just getting rid of him. But she had a knife in the back, though.
Oh, it is hard to read when you're stabbed in the back.
Yeah, she was dying actively, I think, at the end of 2. What surprised me about the continuity issue is that, you know, when Ash lands at the end of 2, he's like, this is my boomstick, you know, and doing the shit that he does. And he's impressing the primates, you know, as he calls them. But at the beginning of Army of Darkness, they think he's like an enemy combatant. There's no deadites. There's nothing he's fighting. He gets put in stocks immediately, which is hilarious. But
my name
he's only got one arm.
Yeah, it's true.
He's only got one arm.
How did they keep him in the stock? I didn't even notice that. I didn't check for his other arm. Maybe they just kept it out of the frame so we wouldn't think about it.
They did.
They did. They did, because they did, so that I would make it more extravagant when that old guy was like, strange one, here's your mysterious arm device.
The other issue that I saw is that his shotgun, there was a very clear shot of his back when he was in the stock, and the holster was flat. There was no gun in it. And then all of a sudden he has this gun, and he dropped the chainsaw to him, but not the gun. So where the fuck did he get the gun from?
Man, it's full of mysterious mysteries. All I can say.
Also, that shotgun had a lot of shells.
It
sure
did.
Yeah, it's a video game shotgun.
Yes,
One of
the
old-
reload time.
Yeah, one of the old ones, so you don't actually have to find like shells for it. It just takes a long time for you
Yeah,
to read.
like the alien arcade game at ground control that I play all the time.
Yeah, that one. That's
The
a
one that
good.
makes me sick, and I do it anyway.
It's fun. I love that game. So yeah, they immediately take him, and they think that he's part of this other guy's band, and that guy's like, "You're not in my fucking band," and they don't care about that, and they throw him in a hole, a deadite hole.
Mhm.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting.
This
And
is also
what?
just the most American reimagining of like medieval England I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
It's,
There's
it's giving medieval times.
yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. I actually, the other leader guy that they thought who he was part of, like who he was with.
Yeah,
I
long
could have sworn they threw him into the hole first, and he just turned into like a blood fountain.
Oh
They
no,
threw-
that was a different guy.
Oh well, I still have the questions about the blood fountain because when he was put down there was no blood fountaining.
Yeah, like what did that?
Mhm.
There was just a janky. I'm sorry. The only thing I kept thinking, well, it's not the only thing, but the primary thought I had for like the end of this movie is I'll never be scared of a fucking skeleton. You can never scare me with a skeleton. I'm gonna laugh at you, you jabroni ass. You don't even have skin, motherfucker. I'm not afraid of a skeleton.
That is a Scooby-Doo thing to be scared of. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Villain.
Especially the way these guys looked. Like, please. I had you in my science class in high school.
What's that? There's like a scary movie clip where it's like the woman, like Brenda, she's like, "That's a skeleton."
Brenda makes sense. Brenda is the most logical scary movie character, even if she's annoying. There was not an impressive amount of deadites down there for it to be this spectacular. Also, what the fuck is Sheila's problem? Because she like nobody asked any questions. She just started spitting on this man and like beating the shit out of him.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
You got like a love at first sight situation here. I'm just saying, sometimes you just see something in someone's face and look at this man. Look at this man. Okay. So you see that face and you're like, I would just love to spit in that face, dude. Just like let me at him. That's what she was thinking. That had to be,
yeah,
otherwise.
Okay. Well, that kind of female hysteria can get you thrown into an asylum. Okay, Sheila, that's on the list of things.
I'm just saying, it's witch behavior. She may have to be burned at the stake.
Burn her!
But also, like, who decided on the name Sheila for a medieval woman?
I was expecting like a middle-aged, like 90s Australian woman, okay?
Guinevere or something.
Anything with Sheila.
Elizabeth, Mary.
And open the Bible and put your finger down. Like, come on.
This is Denise, the medieval woman. You know?
I think it must have been like one of the writers must have had a crush on a lady named Sheila, and so they just like put it in there.
Every time you saw the bitch, she looked a little bit different. Every single time. It's like they had like 4 wigs for Sheila.
Yeah, like when her hair was down, it was all curly, and I'm like,
and sometimes she had like a little pompadour action going on, and I'm like, hello? They don't like her. They obviously don't love Sheila. That is not fair. And then she was no.
Instead of stunt doubles, she had like hair doubles. Just to slightly similar, mostly similar woman with different hair.
Daddy was in the end of this film, though. So
yeah, he was. It's always a pleasant surprise to see his face. Oh, there you are, not covered in Henrietta.
Yeah,
I can see your face. That was
It's like the Stan Lee of these movies.
Yeah, you need a Raimi in there. Otherwise, it's not complete. Like M. Night Shyamalan.
With himself.
I think that Sam is in. I don't know if he's in this one, but he takes like bit parts. I just watched Drag Me to Hell. Ted's off screen for his, which pissed me off. But you just hear his voice. But Sam's in that one too. Like he plays a bit part in that. I don't know if he plays a bit part in this one though.
I hope so. I hope. What if he was one of the skeletons with skins?
Might have been. Well, because I know like Bruce
Oh,
Campbell
no.
had a cameo in the new Doctor Strange movie, so I know that they tend to do that sort of stuff because that was fun. And he's also the narrator for the Ted Raimi Spider-Man games too. So he,
Oh my god, I love that so much. I love that
Yeah.
they're all buddies. Like that, I'm telling you, please invite me to the old guy party. I will lose my mind.
Ah,
Season 2 one?
in this scene where Ash is trying to rally the townsfolk into fighting the Deadites, a bearded man raises his hand and says something like, "I'll lend you my steel." That is Sam Raimi.
And he didn't. Oh, that's funny because he didn't. He not have steel in his hand. He had like a torch or something like that.
yes, yes.
I was like, "Where's your sword, dog? You're off. What are you offering, really?"
I figured he had a cameo, so like I had to Google it.
I want to mention something that I don't know if anyone else like it bothered them. It wasn't really that it bothered me, but I thought it was really funny actually. When he manages to get out of this pit, one of the guys in charge who he's like approaching him, he's like, "Oh, you want some of this? You want some of this?" And the guy was like, he looked like disgusted. Like he looked genuinely afraid and disgusted for so long, and he kept like and it was so long. And I was like, damn, he's really scared. What did they do to him?
It just smells
Well,
really bad.
Yeah. I would say to a medieval person, like this guy with the shotgun and the chainsaw arm is probably it might make them fall into a swoon, you know? So like
He's a good actor because like I was concerned for him. I really was.
it could have been a smell thing too. Like who knows what was in that water? It had to have been dookie.
Right.
Had to have been dookie water.
Medieval smallpox shit going on there.
Not smallpox shit.
That's the fucking Black Plague down there.
Yeah. Okay, so
The duty man's down there, Steph.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's time for the box.
The real star of the podcast.
There's our cameo, however.
Okay, so like, you know, the whole thing is Ash wants to get home and they think he's the chosen one and he's like, ugh, I just want to go home. But he has to get the Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Give it. And that whole journey is extremely goofy. It's very goofy. I don't know whose house that was.
Very Monty Python.
It was Monty Python, but I can tell you where it came from. It wasn't Monty Python because Sam Raimi is a huge Three Stooges fan, and all of
there was a lot of that with the skeletons and the
physical
eyes.
comedy. Yeah.
Yes, there. I was thinking of Three Stooges also when he was fighting the skeleton hands and like. I like that you only see the hands and like one bitch slapped him in the face and
he did this, you know?
Yes.
And the fingers come through, yeah.
Classic. And I don't even like Three Stooges. But I think that's, you know.
My papa used to watch it, so like I remember it being on the TV when I was a kid, so
that's cute. I got excited when he saw that there were 3 books and he said, no one said anything about 3 books because it brought me back to when Evil Dead Rise came out and I was making all of those TikToks and how every book is different, but there's only been 2 books so far. And I was like, I feel like there's gonna be a 3rd book. And then in Army of Darkness, there's 3 books. And I was just like,
3 is a good number. Every time I start writing a story, I end up writing 3 books. Like, it's just what happens, you know? It's a natural cycle of things, so.
Now, you guys are white, and I'm not.
Very.
So, you tell
How
me.
did you know?
Could you tell by how fucking transparent I look in front of this computer screen?
No.
I mean, my light doesn't help, but.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have to put my light back here.
mine's like over here.
So when they gave him the magic words, okay, and he couldn't remember the third word, and he said, it's an N-word. It's definitely an N-word.
He didn't say it, though.
I did. I wasn't mad, but I really didn't like it. I'm like, we could have done anything here.
Well,
I wasn't mad about Skinner wearing that black guy skin and talking to his voice, but I felt like this was necessary. What?
Well, they did that a few times too. Like everything, I was like having a fucking good old time, and then Sheila gets herself kidnapped by fucking like Melty Face, and
Yeah.
now we have to do a rape scene. Like, do we have to do rape in everything? Like, do we have to put the N-word and rape in everything? Like, can we just not? Please.
You could. And I really, really, really would have preferred not to have it in there because it wasn't funny.
It's not.
It wasn't funny. Like, it was not.
They think they're being edgy, but they're not. It's like, how is it edgy if everyone fucking does it? And it's like the eye roll in the middle of the movie every time. You know what I mean? Like,
how common was that trend back in the late 80s and early 90s, though?
Right. Yeah.
Because for that point, it may have been edgier, but now it's just like, this is in everything. Because wasn't that one of the reasons that they like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 were so similar, because they wanted to take out the tree scene? Because he got backlash from it.
So we talked about the tree scene a lot. And in the second one, it was like less so. We had talked about the first one, like, oh, you could have like done the same kind of thing if the tree fingers had gone like inside her mouth, and so they kind of shifted in the second one to that. But I'm just like, as many issues as Evil Dead has had, and I know that like all these dude bros are who cares, blah 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 blah. Shut up, because this is not your podcast. First of all. Second of all, shut up. I just feel like as many issues as they had, they could have just steered clear of this, and they really would have been in great shape. They could have just not had this, like, at all.
I do feel like, though, in the 90s, the rape thing was very prevalent. Just as somebody who watched, and I think that specifically with, like, the other movie that came to mind where I remember it wasn't, like, full on, like, where you had to see it, but it was alluded to, was the Robin Hood movie, which is 1991, that I just looked up, the one with Kevin Costner in it, because I remember my mom telling me to leave the room as a kid because that was in there, and she's like, I don't want you in here. And I feel like it was maybe like the 90s like thought about what historical life was like was, well, if there's a pretty woman there, then of course these brutes are gonna, because they're bad guys, and that's what bad guys do. But
yeah,
I know. I feel like bad guys can do a lot more than that. Like,
yeah, it's funny now that you said, when you said Robin Hood, I was like, I don't know what this movie reminds me of. This is like a really like slapstick version of Robin Hood Men in Tights with horror elements added. That's the vibe I was getting from this movie.
Clearly horror. Like, even the witch levitate, she's hilarious. She's like, and her gray hairs are flying everywhere, and her little dainty feet floating up in the air. Like, it's hilarious.
We were quoting Monty Python the whole way through. Like, anytime there was a castle, we were doing, like, you know, the French guy and in the Holy Grail. We just the whole way through. And there was could not go like 5 minutes without someone saying a line from one of the movies.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
Yep.
Yeah, it was that vibe.
And the bit where they thought he was the chosen one, we were like, he's not the Messiah.
He's a very naughty boy.
Yeah.
Actually, I got it. I have a Monty Python keychain. I've taken this out for the podcast before.
I shouldn't be. Yeah, I just. Shouldn't be surprised by things. Like, I have an unholy fear of goats, and when I went to visit Elle on our fantastic summer girls trip, she had a little black goat in her fucking backpack, and she kept taking it out.
It's a finger puppet. It's a finger puppet goat.
I don't give a damn. I hate him.
He's Black Phillip.
Yeah, Black Phillip can rot in hell. I hate goats.
You
I
don't.
had pet goats at one time, and you know what? Daisy and May are very disappointed.
I'm not a comedy person. Like, I will actively avoid movies that are meant to be funny. And so there's like so much of this movie, and I'm like, this does not hit right. But then at the same time, I was like, but I'm still watching it.
Are we
So I
sure it
guess
was supposed to be not a bad drug trip? Because that's what
it
it
felt
like.
like it.
Yeah.
Like the bit in the windmill, where there's
Yeah.
suddenly a bunch of tiny versions of him.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, that was
noises
a
he was
lot.
making.
Like, oh, I've been drugged. You know, I thought this is a hallucination.
I had no idea who Bruce Campbell was. I just knew that he was the Hawaiian shirt wearing Zaddy from Bird Notice. That was my knowledge of Bruce Campbell. And then when I started watching horror, everyone's like, oh, you've got to watch the Evil Dead movies. You've got to watch Evil Dead. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I finally sat down and watched them, and I watched all three of them back to back, like in the span of one sitting. I was like, this is weird. And I'm like, why does this dude seem so familiar? And it wasn't until Ash versus Evil Dead started getting advertised, I was like, oh, that's the dude from Bird Notice. So
Yeah, he's soft in Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah, he's very, but so it's like one of those things that I'm like, this it's just not my thing. But the departure from movies 1 and 2 to whatever this was is, I just want to know what Sam Raimi was on to decide to go this route with this movie.
I think this was the movie he wanted to make in the beginning, according to like the things I've read or something, you know, to this effect. But he's not really, he didn't set out to be a horror director. He wanted to direct movies, but he was inspired by whatever, like I think it was like Halloween or something had come out. I think that I don't remember. I read something about it, and he's like, well, this can reach a bigger audience. So he leaned into horror, especially because when you're dealing with smaller budgets and stuff, and like he just really had to get that cabin, and then they came up with all of these practical effects and stuff for Evil Dead 1. Like that was really, like, we talk about loving films that are like small set, like film school projects. That's what the first one is.
Yeah, well, at least he got rid of the unibrow that was in the first, that he had in the first movie, because that Bruce Campbell unibrow was,
Unibrows are sexy.
it was all I could see. Like, all I could see.
I'm not mad at it.
He's got very intense eyes, and he's very
Yes.
emotive. And I think that like the way that Ash just kind of like becomes more and more of this kind of like, I don't know, like alpha male type of like swagger thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
amusing, and he leans into it in such a funny way.
It's so hard. And it's like at the end of this movie, that freaking convenience store guy with all the machismo, hail to the king, baby. That guy, he's still exactly that guy in Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yes.
Like, I think he's living in a trailer. It's so fucking funny.
I gotta watch
It
it.
is
I
very
haven't
funny.
seen it.
It's very funny.
It's worth a watch if you like anything Evil Dead. It's really, I thought it was really great.
Yeah, because you also have like slow moving dad bod Bruce Campbell doing the
Yes.
same like intense machismo. Like he's still working at the convenience store, and he's living like I think he's living in like a trailer,
Yes.
and he's so over everything.
It's so funny. So he just carried that shit. And like, you think about this guy carrying that shit with him his whole life. What a character. I like him.
Well, he's
Yeah, I
a
do too.
boomer, so he's not going to go to therapy.
No.
That's just going to fester in him.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Therapy. He lives in a trailer.
I mean, that too.
He works at a convenience store in America. He's not getting health insurance.
In the 90s, he might have been able to. My dad was a retail store manager, and he had health insurance. I have been working retail since I was 14 off and on, and have never had reliable insurance. So there's a difference in generation too. So
I just get hit on by old man.
That's fun.
that happens a lot. Yep.
Yeah, but like that's it. Like we did the Evil Deads. I think we've covered every Evil Dead movie on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, you and Jay extensively covered the remake.
I mean, it was like we were on Zoom for like 3 hours, but we were drinking and Jay and I talk a lot. If we don't have Elle to police us, we just fucking take off. It was the worst editing of my entire life, and I yell at him after. But it's so good. So yes, we've covered all the Evil Deads.
And it's funny because I will say I was very resistant. And when they said they were going to do the new one, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Because I was under the assumption that this was a zombie movie. And I don't like zombie movies because I'm not afraid of I'm not afraid of a skeleton. I'm not afraid of a fucking corpse. Okay. I'm not afraid of it. So to me, it's just like a mindless, like it's brawn over brain. I want a story where I have to solve for like what the mystery is in there, like how to get out of it. Like I want to be able to think along with it. So I was pleasantly surprised when I finally watched them.
Yeah, same. I had the same,
probably
like,
my favorite.
yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, this looks like a zombie film and it looks weird and I don't know if I want to watch it. That's why I put them off for so long. And then someone was just like, fine, you should watch it. And I think the last standing family video was like 2 minutes from my apartment at the time, and it lasted up until a month before COVID happened. That's how long this family video survived. And they're like, we have the Evil Dead box set, you could rent it for $1 for 5 nights. I was like, okay. So that's what I did.
Damn.
And I was like, it was a very long night. It was a very long, confusing night of Sam Raimi stuff.
I literally never even heard of Evil Dead until, well, because I used to not, I mean, I've always dabbled in horror, but I used to not watch it all that often. But I remember in 2013, that was when Evil Dead 2013 was coming out, and I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, what is this? It looks like it's going to scare the pants off of me. And so before I saw it, I watched the original first, and I was like, this is goofy as hell. They were not the same. They were not the same. I was still prepared walking into that movie theater. But it's definitely definitely one of my favorite franchises.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm glad I watched it before I sat down and watched Ash vs. Evil Dead, because the show is so freaking fun. And I would not have appreciated it had I not seen the movies and seen where it started to be able to sit down and enjoy that show as much as I did. It's so fun.
We should give real chuds for this movie.
For this, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go last.
I'm gonna give this one a solid 4. I would say if I was looking at 2, I would give it 4.5, like Evil Dead 2. This is like my second favorite of the franchise, and I love it.
I'm gonna give it 2 chuds because I didn't enjoy it very much.
That's okay. We love differences.
I'm
gonna give it 3.5 because I don't like comedies. I don't like horror comedies. It's a little too silly for me, but Bruce Campbell.
Is the chud cut in half from the head or down the middle?
It's the top half, because that's the half that says "Hail to the King, baby."
Give me some sugar.
Give me some sugar.
You have to preserve that beautiful chin of his.
Yeah, you need that.
And the monobrow.
I would make him grow that back. I'm also giving it 3.5 chuds because also I don't shy away from comedy. I've actually gone to a bunch of like stand-up comedy recently. I never ever thought I would be that person in my life. It's not my favorite because sometimes I get embarrassed. I'm usually watching it when I'm high, and when I'm high, I can very clearly tell that people are acting and like it's not real, and it gives me secondhand embarrassment. So like that's just not for me. But I had a good time. And yeah. So 3.5 chuds.
I definitely like a comedy tacked on to something else. My other
Mhm.
like all-time favorite movie is Shaolin Soccer. I love that, but again, it's an action movie with a comedy element to it.
Right.
And I think that probably is my favorite genre. Horror comedy, action comedy, whatever. Like I like leaning into the goofy side of things. I also love Blackadder, this series, because it is a
I do like
historical
Blackadder.
drama
Yeah.
that is very funny and very goofy. So
Okay, yeah.
kind of my
I
shit.
like comedy tacked on to other things. I feel like when it's just comedy by itself, they're trying too hard and I get
Yeah.
embarrassed.
Yes. Same.
Agree.
Yeah,
I don't
like-
watch straight comedy movies usually.
No, I don't either. And if it's one of those that, like, if I get a genuine chuckle out of something and it's like a drama or a thriller or an action movie, I'm like, okay, you did something right there.
Mhm.
And that's the stuff that I appreciate. So I'm in that same boat.
The only straight comedy that I've watched recently that I actually enjoyed was that new Nick Cage movie with Pedro Pascal in it.
I've heard that's phenomenal.
You gotta watch
It
it.
is.
So.
Good.
The
It's
scene with
so
the
good.
wall, I watched it on the airplane coming back from Nepal, and it was on like Qatar Airways, and I had just had a horrible trip back, and I just spent the entire flight just laughing at this movie.
It's
It was
so
amazing.
good. That movie makes me eat everything that I just said because I love both of them so much.
I haven't watched it. I need to.
Until next time, you can find us on the interwebs at ghostinthemagazine.site. You can find us on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can find Stef on Twitter at WitchXPudding. You can find me on Twitter at Nocturnical. You can find Al on Twitter at Maybe Mockingbird. And you can find Molly on Twitter at Night_Time T.
Okay, bye.